Welcome to Your Donut, You Eat It. I'm your host, Sean. And, I dropped an episode this morning, and I usually only do one episode for Your Donut, You Eat It, because this is the cultural part of my podcast. I had to do this tonight. I have some burning questions that arose from a cultural piece that I think is very significant because it's different. So I am one of Eric July's customers from the Rippaverse. So I have Isom number 1, I have Isom number 2. And, after Isom number 1, I was interested in learning a hell of a lot more about Alpha Core. I won't give away a lot of plot points, but I'm going to bring up some pieces that are in the books. I strongly encourage you to check them out. They're worth the money you're going to pay. The storyline alone is different. And if you're a fan of someone like Eric July, like I am, he's influenced me in ways I don't know I could convey. I'm down a significant amount of weight from where I was. And it all came from a phrase that he said, "Be great." So after getting Isom number 2, first off, I have to say that, he just started fulfilling orders for this stuff for Isom number 2. And I got a shipping update I think this weekend, and it showed up here today, Thursday. So I came back from going to the post office and shipping off some stuff, and I came to my post box and I opened it up. Now I got a UPS shipping label confirmation, but I guess the last leg it came USPS. Do I have a problem? No. The box came in pristine shape. So anyone who ever buys a comic or has bought comics, and man, I've been reading comics since I was like 8 years old, and I'm a huge fan was a huge fan before they started bringing in the multiverse crap that just detracted from the storyline, because they would change randomly characters from male to female, make them gay or not. Again, don't really care about the culture war issues with that. I've always wondered why they didn't make new characters just to have those traits rather than change people that are characters that have already been established. That faux pas I just said of people, that should tell you how close I am to the comic book world or what I think of it. I'm a consumer. I was trying to break into this with what is turning out to be a novel now. And getting this, there was a lot of nostalgia. Another thing I can say is that the book doesn't feel like a normal comic book. It is thicker. The stock that's it's printed on is thicker. It's very much like a very high-polished magazine. The artwork inside is beautiful. The guys that did the art, did the ink, did everything, they did a superb job from a fan who is, from a comic book fan. Let's just put it that way. Inside, there's a blurb that tells you the story of the Rippaverse, how canon matters, and the basic tenets of what they're trying to do in the Rippaverse to make the story awesome. Big fan of that, because once you marry people to canon, that means you can't do that multiverse crap, and that you can't just imagine people out of thin air. There has to be a story that develops in them. Okay. So, the only part I could ever detract from in this, and I understand why it's there though, is that there's probably about 3 or 4 storylines, if you're paying attention, in each one of these books, and neither one of them are concluded. Now, there's a couple reasons why I can see this happening. Number one, the book would have to be like a novel, and you can't do that in a comic book unless you make one of those combined editions. And number two is it hooks you into the storyline, and that's exactly what he did to me. So there's this group called Alpha Core. Now, I won't go into what they do because I really don't know. I want to know a hell of a lot more. I know this is one of the books that Eric's going to launch later, and this will give us more, or the Rippaverse specifically, is going to give us more insight to who they are. But after reading them both, I want to know if they're good guys or bad guys, because I after the first one, I was kind of thinking, cool, I want to see who these guys are. They're pretty cool. The other thing is there's another character called Yara. In the second one, you see her briefly, I believe, and this is just a fan observation. I'm pretty sure it's Yara, but I'm not 100% sure. I would really, and I'm starting to look into finding forums, fan clubs that has been brought up around this book, Isom, and just so I could discuss these things with these people. I want to see if there's with the other fans of the medium, the other fans of the story, because I'm curious as to what else that I might have missed. I hate to say it this way, but guys aren't always very detail oriented. I try to be, but I'm also trying to keep the books in the best condition possible. Even though I bought them as readers, I've not opened them up all the way and kind of bent or creased anything. I was trying to read very carefully. I washed my hands. I'm going to be silly, and I'm going to tell you I actually wore gloves. That's just because I want to keep these. To me, they're historical pieces because I used to have a lot of number ones that I hunted down for newer storylines. I still have Spawn number 1. I had Spawn number 4, which had the little subscription thing in there. It was the only time I know of that Spawn ever did that. I had the first appearance of Gambit. Unfortunately, there was a fire at my mom and dad's house after I moved out, and I neglected to grab my comic book collection, and they were all backed and boarded and everything nice and neat, and a lot of them were lost in a fire. So I'm slowly reclaiming some of these and having to buy them again. And I don't want to do that for these. This is the first one that I've gotten back into comics with that I've been really excited about, and that I could see them having some sort of value even after I pass, like Spider-Man number 1. But what's really cool about this is that for me buying just a readable copy, so I bought, I think, cover number 2 or 3. He has 4 covers, and there's ones that you can get that are foil embossed. They're even more beautiful. I'm currently looking for a job, and I'm starting up a company, so I'm kind of on limited funds, but I want to support the effort because I think it's important, because it's a cultural piece there. But these 4 storylines that have going on, they switch in between stuff, and you're brought into them, and you get engrossed in them. And that's very, very much what a comic book's supposed to do. I remember one of my favorite storylines is the Batman arc where Bane breaks everyone out of Arkham Asylum, and they have to round them up. Well, that took place over several books, over several months, almost years, I think, to get where it reached its finale. Okay. At the end of Isom number 2, he says that the next book will conclude it. Maybe. And when I say maybe, I could see him being able to expand into Alpha Core and into Yara, because I know they both are going to be new books in the Rippaverse. The other criticism I would have is I'm at the point now where I think that Eric could go with a monthly series, and he could make just as much. But I am not that good of a businessman yet, so I'm going to shut the hell up, because that is totally on him. And he's got enough of us readers now that are hooked, I believe, that are going to continue to check it out and see what's going on. I am, But inside the book, or inside the box, I was surprised. I knew that there was going to be some stuff that probably, some swag, so to speak. Well, the only swag I got, because I didn't spend a ton of money, was I got a very nice bookmark. And it's an Isom bookmark. And it's very well, the art on it is very beautiful. I can't complain about any of the things in this. If anything, Eric has went above and beyond expectation with art and coloring. You can tell these people are enthused about the character because you can see it in the care and craftsmanship that you see in the book. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything for you other than saying that you need to get both of these copies. Isom 1 and 2, and you're going to love them. If you're a comic book person, Eric has been going, and the Rippaverse were at the first San Diego Comic-Con. I will probably try to make one of the cons when I know he's going to be there. My goal in buying Isom 1 unsigned, and I didn't buy the second one signed either, was that I want to go see Backwards. I'm a huge fan of Backwards, and if you listen to my podcast, the intro and the outro are from Eric July, specifically, not full Backwards. If I could use Backwards music, I would do it, but I know they're copyrighted and they're struck, and the intro I use isn't struck, and I purposely picked it because of that. I did buy his album that he put out that was just kind of, I think it's called Rap Circle, and it was just so that I could use it for my podcast. But like I was saying, these are backed and boarded. The box, he had to do a lot of research into how to get the comic to you in one solid piece that without having dog ears on it from the mailbox or from the delivery carrier. And mine, both of them came very well sealed, very well kept as they are, and they're resealed and put back in their boxes, and I have both of them in a very safe place. Probably soon to be in a fire safe. Again, starting up a comic book collection because I was a huge fan of the medium, and was trying, like I said, to get into it. But what I noticed the most about this was it hooked you. It was pure nostalgic feeling for me, being a reader and a consumer of comic book art. You know, I don't understand why people would buy a digital comic book. And the reason why is there's a smell that I can only, if you're a comic book reader, you know. And you feel something with these books. And that's exactly what I got today, was pure nostalgia bait. I took 2.5 hours to go through the whole book. Now, mind you, I am what is called a speed reader in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to novels. But because I was trying to take so much care with this book, I spent a lot of time going over every panel and trying to observe the things I saw. And it is beautiful. They introduced a new couple characters that I could see going forward. They introduced someone that's going to be I'm going to assume is kind of like a Bruce Wayne or a Tony Stark type of guy who runs a giant business. I want to know more about his family because there's part of his family, his sister's in this, I believe, and his niece. That's what I picked up on. And I was hoping that that's where that was going to go for Isom 2 so we could get more conclusion there before he jumped to the next phase of where he's taking the story arc. If you've ever listened to Eric July in any of his political circles or any of his comic book stuff when he's talking about the Rippaverse and he's talking about what he's doing in that area, and you know Eric's cadence, you know his speech patterns, and you can tell he wrote them, wrote Isom 1 and Isom 2, because there's a couple panels, and I shared one on Twitter today, and my handle is Spawn082, where you hear, like, I literally could hear Eric say, "Oh, hell no," or "Oh, hell." You know, I've heard him say those type of things in his broadcasts, and it matched perfectly. Now, if Eric ever turns this into an animated cartoon, I'll be watching it, and I'll be subscribing to the Rippaverse online, which I probably am going to do as soon as I get the business up and running, or I get a job, either one, because I'm that dedicated to what it is. And I think his fan base for the Rippaverse is right along with me. You know, there are lots of detractors who are in the comic book space that try to knock him down for, you know, basically kickstarting this stuff off, using his own funds, using his own everything. That's what draws me to it instead of repels me to it from it. Like all these other people that are in the spaces that have actually done the work, supposedly, and are kind of the ones that have made the crap that I'm not interested in. I don't really care to hear from him. And to see them, bash on him. One of the criticisms that I thought was really stupid is they criticized him for buying a warehouse, and then they said that he had empty spaces in his warehouse. Well, he's launching 3 damn comic books, and he's just launched this, and he moved from one warehouse to another. And anyone who's ever worked in a warehouse knows you need space, because when you order stuff, and you're ordering it kind of on demand, because that's what I think he's doing. I mean, I know he's pre-ordering parts of that, but I know that some of this still has to come in. Like there's going to be more book posters and T-shirts and hats and all the swag that everybody wants that are associated with comic books. He has to have a place to store them. So for these detractors to go and say that, look, his comic book isn't even that popular, he doesn't even have enough room, he has so much room in his warehouse, made no sense to me. And I love that Eric actually challenged them and said, look, man, I have just enough room for when we get new shipments in. And I'm thinking myself, after listening to what Eric said, is he's going to have to expand to an even larger warehouse very soon. Because I fully see this taking off and rivaling DC and Marvel and Image and all the other big players, because there's enough of a fan base that it's not his politics that attracted me to this. I'm a fan of his politics. I'm more of an ANCAP now because of him than anything else. But the reason why I'm interested in this is what he said at the beginning when he started this journey, was that he's marrying canon to the books. And that matters to someone who's always been a comic book nerd. If someone dies in Isom, I don't see them being resurrected magically somewhere. It could happen, because I think there is a mystical place that's starting to show up here, which is even more interesting. There's some hints here and there that there's going to be other pieces of this storyline that are going to lead to the mysticism realm. I'm not going to get farther into that storyline. I'm just very impressed. I can't speak highly enough of this as a guy that took some coin out of my wallet and bought something that I actually care about. And I haven't done that in a long time when it comes to the comic book spaces. Number one, I live in northwest New Mexico. The 2 comic book stores we've ever had, or 3 that I know of that have been in our area, have closed down because they didn't have enough foot traffic. One of them, COVID killed it, basically. And I have to order, or I have to subscribe to get this stuff to me here. Because the only thing I have here is something like old school Hastings is called Entertain Mart. And I don't know that they're abreast enough in the comic book spaces that they would carry Eric's stuff. And that's the one that I'm most enthused about right now and want to get and see. So I would highly recommend you check this out. I am stoked about it. I don't know what else to say other than you have to look at the beauty inside this. If you're a comic book nerd and you want to look at penciling and you want to look at inking and you want to look at where things are going and how things are done in the comic book world, this guy is like me. Eric has to be. And his people are already bigwigs, or were bigwigs in the comic book spaces that he's managed to hire and get in here. Now, it lends to that right away. This book looks better than a lot of the comics that I have read in my life. Specifically, that Batman arc I was telling you about. A good third of those books, I would say, have no candle compared to what I'm seeing in the Rippaverse with just 2. And I mean that in the art, the styling, the coloring, and they damn sure never, ever would hold a candle to how well the book is put together. This is well bound. It is not just a staple of the pages to a cover. I would fully believe that these are first printings. That used to be a big thing in the comic book world. I don't know if it is anymore, because that's how long I've checked out, because the storylines got stale and they didn't excite me. And to have 4 of them, at least 4 story arcs that I'm very curious about right now, that means he's got me. You can't get more hooked than I am right now for what I see there. And I really give 2 shits about detractors who are talking all this mad smack about Eric, the artist, him writing it. None of it, because the storyline involves you enough that you're wanting to check it out. So I would, I'm trying to get my podcasts up and running. Well, they've been going for a while, but I'm trying to get better at podcasting and gain a better audience. I wish the same thing for Eric, and I think he's already got it. The first one sold $3.5, I believe, million worth of comics. This one, I think, is up to $2.5 million or $2 million or something like that. That shows that he's got the right chops and he's got the right people. I'm excited to be on the ground floor of, as a consumer, seeing something and developing a love already for something that I look forward to the next phase. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Be great.
I can't let it slide. My politics are rather controversial. Who would have thought that I ain't catching